Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will continue with another session of this webinar series, Making Industry 4.0 Working for All. I'm delighted to continue with a more in-depth view of the different technologies that the fourth industrial revolution are bringing to us, and particularly how they are impacting on our SMEs and on the economies, etc., in the countries where we want to support. Yeah. My name is Alejandro Rivera. I am the Executive Officer at the Directorate of Digitalization, Technology, and Agribusiness from UNIDO, and I will be moderating this session today. I will share my screen to you to introduce the session. So the name of the session is that we will start today. Yeah, is digital transformation from above. So we will be having a look in from the role of drones in agriculture and forestry. For this occasion, we have invited our distinguished panelist, Mr. Alex Watson, which is the CEO of Open Forest. Mr. Alex Watson is founder of Open Forest Company in 2011. Open Forest uses the knowledge in geographical information systems, mapping, natural resource management, landscape, to support sustainable landscape projects, software development such as agroforestry, forest restoration, forest conservation, among many other applications. The goal for this company is to develop the entire information chain from the field towards all stakeholders and public. Yeah, we will be also having Mr. Maximilian Mirstik, co-founder of Daria. Since 2018, Mr. Mirstik is a drone expert and the CEO of Daria company. He focuses mainly on the challenging aspects of drone business, such as data acquisition and artificial intelligence-based learnings, and as well as indoor navigation without GPS signal. Yeah, Mr. Mirstik is also a member of multiple international drone networks where he has been able to build strong relationships to drone solution providers worldwide. We will be having also with us our colleague, Mr. Stavros Papastavrou, yeah, which is the Industrial Development Officer in the Agro Industries and Skill Development Division from UNIDO. Stavros is involved with the management of in technical education projects with a focus on agriculture, forestry, light manufacturing, and water resource management. Yeah, he presently oversees technical education projects covering 8 countries in the MENA region and in Sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, and the last but not least is my colleague also Farouk Alinjano, who is Industrial Development Officer in the Innovation and Digitalization division. Farouk has nearly 25 years of experience in international organizations as well as the private and public sector. Among others, he is responsible for formulation and implementation of the UNIDO technical cooperation projects focusing on industrial design, branding, modernization, enterprise competitiveness, and digital transformation in several regions from Africa, Europe, Central Asia, Latin America, among others. So for this session, yeah, we will be talking about particularly on, we will referring to unmanned aerial vehicles yeah, commonly known as drones. I think most of us have seen the applications of drones for pleasure, for the military industry, but I think few of us have seen them on action, particularly on agro-industry, value chains, and with productive purposes. Yeah. So today we will be, having a view how they are more relevant for the agriculture, how they can be more useful in collection of spatial data to carry out more accurate yield production projections, improve production, and identify crop disease, pests, and weeds, and also how they can be impacting on the optimization of these chemicals, etc., compacting the soil, etc. And the combination of this data, yeah, can help us, can help farmers and different stakeholders in the value chain to improve the sustainability and to the manage of natural resources. Well, for this webinar, we will examine the potential and limitation of this type of technologies in agriculture and forestry, particularly in the context of developing countries. Yeah. Our external invitees, panelists, and our colleague Stavros will provide further insights on the potential and opportunities of the application of these technologies, while our colleague Farouk will introduce a UNIDO concrete project that is ongoing using this type of technologies. So we will be having an initial round of presentations from the panelists, and later on, we will start with a round of questions to each of the panelists. For all attendees of these webinars, we would like to encourage you to put your questions in writing, if possible, using the chat function. And also for your information, today we will be recording this session and we will make it available afterwards in our Knowledge Hub DTA platform. And we will also put there the presentations of the panelists. Having said that, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Alex Watson. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this introduction. So I'm going to share my screen now. Please let me know when you can see it.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, today I'm providing an initial overview about satellite drone applications and how to make them accessible via interactive web maps. I'm sharing some of our almost 10 years experience working with remote sensing data and applications in the developing countries around the world. Just a few words. Open Forest is a mission-driven social enterprise. Today, we are about 12 persons working in our team. We're working as consultant, but also establishing forest information management platforms and mapping platforms such as Explore.land. And we're working with clients like governmental agencies, NGOs, and agro and forestry companies worldwide. So the initial question basically is, why do we need data? For example, remote sensing data from drones and satellite. So the answer is quite simple. Better information contributes to better management decision. And the data is needed for various purposes. So just to outline a few, like sustainable land management. So it's very valuable for planning, for inventory, but also for certification and damage assessment, but also to get topographic maps to lay out the planning for agricultural ventures, including wildlife monitoring, soil erosion, but also for detecting illegal activities, which sometimes also occur, like illegal harvesting, logging, or encroachment, or verifying boundaries of projects. So the sky is the limit with the data. So for someone who's not working on a daily basis with remote sensing data, the big number of data sources, their specifications, the multitude of potential analysis can be quite challenging and overwhelming. So I prepared these guiding questions to help to specify the information requirements and condense the potential available data sources. So because without having these questions clear, so really answered, there's no need to think about drone or satellite image applications at all. So basically, we have to understand, what do we want to observe? So what's the spatial size? What's the minimum required time resolution? And of course, also what is our budget? Because with a lot of money, you can get a lot of precise information, but you have to really find a sweet spot that works for your project in order to make the best possible decision. So what do we want to observe? For example, satellites like Sentinel and Landsat can capture with one single shot, which is called a scene, several thousands of hectares just in a second. And every week they are able to cover the entire world with a resolution of 10 to 30 meters per pixel image resolution. So in comparison, so I have shown this picture, a civil drone, like a fixed wing drone, in the lower to medium price segment, so a civil drone, might only capture 1,000 to 3,000 hectares maximum per day. So, however, as an astonishing high resolution in comparison to satellite imagery, so of 5 to 20 centimeters per pixel. And the big advantage, especially in the tropics, is that you receive pictures without any clouds, where you often have problems with satellite imagery. So this is a great advantage. I try to just outline a few pro and cons, because drones always have to be seen in the context of remote sensing as one tool. So, and I try to compare them a little bit. So drones are more for local image capturing, satellite have more a global approach. The time resolution for drones is you can have them on demand. With satellite, you have them regularly. Spatial resolution is extreme high with drones, which has some advantages, but also some disadvantages. Satellite imagery in comparison is relatively low. Yeah, so basically, essential is that drones have a lower coverage, high resolution, but also higher costs in comparison to satellite imagery. Today, we're going to have a little more focus on the drones. So drones used in the context of agriculture, forestry, and resource management are really lightweighted, autonomous airborne platforms, which can collect data along predefined flight trajectories. So you can really plan them and they will fly autonomous. And for this purpose, drones can be equipped or carry different optical or thermal sensors. And for today, I just want to differentiate between fixed wing drones, which are used to map larger areas, and copter drones, which don't have the same range, but can potentially mount bigger sensors and can be used for very precision positioning of sensors. So to not just give you words, I want to show you maybe 1.5 minutes some impressions of drones in use. So what you see here is a fixed wing drone at start and also later during landing. So they are very handy today, easy to use, and you can basically carry them as you did maybe, let's say, a few years ago, your GPS device to the field. And if something unexpected has to be checked, so you can just throw them in the air and they can capture along a mapped area all the things you need to see. So they come back and then you can just take out the camera and read in the photos in order to further process the data. So they come in different formats. What you see now is an open source drone, which is very performative while having very low cost. This is very important for the developing context because you can repair them yourself. And here you see a multi-rotor copter. This is a drone which can fly very precisely and mount, sometimes a few kilograms of very sophisticated sensors. Today, even lighter, like laser sensors. Yeah. So this was just a short impression. I hope you could see the videos. They will share it also as a YouTube link in the chat. Well, when working in agriculture, forestry, or landscape resource management, the data management process has usually these 3 steps. So there's a data acquisition step where the data is obtained. There's a data processing and analysis process step. And then the 3rd step is the information management. So the information management is the place where the data sit, where it is made accessible and shared within the project, or also with the public or other stakeholders. In this overview, I've compiled the various data acquisition methods, just to give a brief overview. So we have the possibility to obtain data via satellite, like optical or radar. Many of them are open source and free available, like Sentinel and Landsat. You can obtain data with drones to create different data sets like orthophoto maps or 3D elevation models. But you can also collect data with a mobile field device. After acquiring these data sets, they need to be processed in order to create different remote sensing products, we call them. So that could be a growth model, a land cover classification, an automated tree detection algorithm that runs all the pictures to derive specific information out from the data. And I want to just highlight a few, starting with satellite imagery. I have decided to show you one example of an Ndvi. So Ndvi is a normalized difference vegetation index. It is used to identify vegetation and to provide a measure of its health and vitality. So this is a very important index for specifically for agricultural area. So I want to ask you to have a close attention to the area of interest and at the bottom part, which has this red polygon. So if I'm switching between February and January, you see a change there. So this is considered a drop in this photosynthetic activity, and this is detected with the Ndvi index. Such a drop can be a lack of nutrients, droughts, pest, disease, storm, floods, harvesting events, whatever. And they provide an early information, let's say, for the manager to see if something's going into a wrong direction and maybe need to be changed or adapted. I quickly run you through some other examples. We can have land cover analysis based on satellite imagery to see how is the landscape structured, where's forest, where's shrubland, farmland, and so on. We can have a change detection on landscape level with satellite imagery to see how forest cover is changing, how land is converted towards different purposes and land use. We can use radar imagery, derived elevation models to do large-scale landscape planning based on the slope, for example. Yeah, so these are just a few examples what you can do with satellite imagery. I'm now moving over to the drone maps, which can basically do very similar things, but at a much higher resolution. For example, this is a land use classification based on drone imagery. We can have a change detection, so we can see already single trees which have been removed from a forest to see, for example, reduced impact logging methods. We can create growth models to see how crops or trees are developing over time. And we could have even tree detection. So coming slowly to an end, all this information sits in an information system which can access with a geographic information system such as QGIS or interactive web maps. I want to show you the last example, which is a web map that has a satellite map in the background with a low resolution. And this is a way of how you can share your data with the public and stakeholders. This area has been reforested. In 2016, a drone map has been created, and 1 year later, you can basically see the forest growing back. So this is a very impressive way on how to present and share this remote sensing data from drones and satellite. And to make these tools accessible, we have set up a platform called explore.land, where everyone can basically share their remote sensing data with their stakeholders, community, the public, and supporters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex, for this fascinating and colorful presentation, and particularly for bringing us into the world of satellite and drones imagery. And particularly, I like to highlight the message you are giving us on the relevance of data, which is a critical asset in most of the 4IR technologies, and the management process that it needs to be followed, the potentials and limitations, and also for bringing us into the different type of drones that can be used and applications. Thank you very much. I will continue with the second panelist. It's Maximilian. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Same here. I'm going to share my presentation with you. Thanks to the organizers for the opportunity talking to you today. Digital transformation, the role of drones in agriculture and forestry. The company Ndvi is a Viennese-based startup company dealing with drone technology, and what Alex perfectly stressed out in his presentations, how far this technology can bring us, what are the purposes behind. Our scope is not so much different, but I would like to take you on a little journey in 8 minutes. What are the challenges and what are the benefits that especially can be taken for agriculture and forestry in drone usage. I was talking about the journey. My journey begins sometime in 2010 when drones entered the commercial market, when the first industrialization took place. And in the very beginning of this technology, flight operations was the major item to cover. How to have an easy handling drone with a stable flight operation was very much the focus of all drone manufacturers and drone service providers. And the data capturing, something that Alex now perfectly stressed out, was not so much in focus yet, because first of all, we had to make sure that these things are not falling from the sky like birds. Over the time, in the last 10 years now, it was then the shift that flight operations became more and more professionalized, more and more stable, easy to use. You didn't have to have a perfectly experienced operator anymore, and data capturing more or less took over more and more importance and focus in technical development. Now in 2020, I'd like to say we have perfectly robust autonomously flying drones in the outdoor sector. As long as there's a GPS signal, many drones, and let it be fixed wings or multicopters, are capable of flying operations with obstacle detections in a very safe and smooth way. So what our company Ndvi is doing, as we've been founded in 2018, we jumped on the data capturing end and focused also on indoor operations of drones, which is something new that I'd like to stress with you in the next couple of minutes. So our initiation was the Industry 4.0 hype. I would call it hype now that it's coming to a more smoother, more industrialized and organized discussion. We're moving drones from data black boxes that are capable of recording pictures, taking pictures, recording videos, into a fully integrated data processing unit, which is not only capable of flying outdoor in agriculture and forestry, but also having its positive impacts on indoor operations. Let this be warehouses, let this be production facilities, where especially in Western Europe and the United States, drones are used for increasing the grade or the level of efficiency in so many processes, especially non-value-added processes, where there are big opportunities to collect data, to interpret data, and also to put a word on Alex there, a perfect line there. Good management decisions require good data as their basis. So again, Daria jumped on this Industry 4.0 strategy. We make it fly. So our drones are in many business fields and many industries. Just a couple of items to cover. It's all about data acquisition. It's all about object detection, object recognition, something that Alex also pointed out in terms of identifying trees, identifying soil, identifying level of harvest or harvesting potential, and so on. So this is what is part of our mission and our strategy, and this is what we're having for. Therefore, we're using advanced technology. As I've stated in the beginning, the drone industry is giving us a very good playground here of robust technology that is easy to use, easy to adapt, so we can fully focus on the topics of data acquisition and artificial intelligence. So we see the drone as a sensor carrier, and the sensors applied to the drone are our suppliers of data that can be processed on the drone or off the drone. Once the drone has been landed, the data has been taken in multiple ways and multiple aspects in order to provide good information capable of making the right decisions. What you see in the picture to the right is one of our prototypes that might not be the first in line when we're talking about agriculture and forestry, because it's indoor. But what we're doing here is inventory, stock taking. So the drone is capable of flying indoors without GPS signal and doing what usually manual work has to do, counting things, checking, searching, all these kind of procedures which are not value added, that can easily be done by drones with more high accuracy. Our contribution to agriculture and forestry is a project that we actually did in 2017 with a partner, Birdview in Brazil. The customer at that moment was Citro Suco, which is a provider of orange harvesting, where their interest was very much in predictability of harvest. So their question was, in how far can drones and data collected by drones help me as a orange provider give a good forecast and estimation on the quota of harvest within the next season. The world market of harvested crops is very much depending on the quotas and the potential output of certain regions in certain times of the year. And the better this forecast can be done, the better the pricing inside the market can be carried out. So this was a very decisive item for managers to decide and to position their harvest on the world market in a very early stage, because they were capable of deciding or predicting what the harvest will bring. Not only that, because this is a very economic focused subject matter, it was all about bringing out pesticides, detecting in a very early phase where we expect trees not to carry enough harvest, to see where any bugs or else would have an influence on the harvest. So the data collected by the drones was not only there to predict the harvest, but also to safeguard that preventive measures for any deviation in the expected behavior can be applied in a very early phase. So this was a project we did 2 years ago, was a very successful one together with a partner. Our role in that subject matter was taking the data collected by the company BirdView and applying artificial intelligence and providing the data backwards. Meanwhile, BirdView, high recommendation, they have their own drone biocontrol that is contributing to these services. In a nutshell, there are a couple of items that gotta be outlined. Drones, since they made a good evolution throughout the last years, still have some feel of exotic, complicated, regulatory-wise. It's not an easy one to start your drone everywhere. We feel that there's a lot of work going on to make sure that drones will be applied as standard tools, just like forklifts or many other tools in various industry sectors. We expect that to take place no later than 2025. That all of these aspects about drones that can be taken on the balanced scorecard will apply, and that we will see a big leap forward or big giant step forwards drone technology. There is rulemaking and law-giving discussion. We've achieved the JAROS, which is something that each and every drone provider should have an eye on. This is an internationally relevant frame set of requirements that gotta be followed. And what you see on the right side, to come to an end, is some kind of discussion we're leading here in Europe at the moment. Drone operations indoors, where there's no legal frame set yet, but we're working on it to get this done, that there will be permissions for flying in a very early stage. So I'm looking forward to your questions. Thanks for your time, thanks for your attention, and see you later.
Thank you very much, Maximilian, for this very nice presentation, and particularly for highlighting the importance of data acquisition and the challenges associated to regulation, to the regulatory framework and standards that are needed also if we want to have a broader application of these drones, particularly how is there linkage with other 4IR technologies like artificial intelligence and so on. And particularly, I think it's very valuable, the example you present on the orange production in Brazil. I will continue now with Stavros. Yeah, the floor is yours, Stavros.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just quick share my screen and then. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I'll start. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about this topic. It's something that I'm quite interested in, and it was very, very nice to hear from the two previous speakers, their perspectives in forestry and examples. And just want to summarize and say some key words from the previous presenters. Saying we're talking about data, talking about information, we're talking about decisions, and then with our final speaker was the mention of costs. And all these things that tie together to help make better decisions and gain efficiencies is really where I'm going to go with starting my presentation and introducing the topic of precision agriculture, where drones have come in now as another tool to this topic. So I'll start with this next slide. In our training preparation session, a colleague of mine said, this looks like a lot of bread. And so when we look at this slide, it is on farm, they're harvesting grain, and probably this ends up on somebody's table in the terms of a food product. But there's so much more to this photo that is, let's say, beyond the eye, and that comes to technology and precision agriculture. So when we say about precision agriculture, what is it? It's the use of information technology to enhance agricultural production. Farmers in the past managed their farms closely using hand labor and animals to tailor their approaches to farming small patches. As machines replaced this small-scale labor, farmers could accomplish more in less time. So fields and farms grew in size. Today's type of precision agriculture began in the 90s with the use of GPS technology to automate tasks in farming, such as grid and grid zone soil sampling and the use of yield monitors on combines. These methods help farmers track things on a field-by-field basis or a subfield basis, reintroducing the management specificity lost to large-scale mechanization. Precision farming permeates every aspect of crop production, including soil preparation, nutrient and pest management, harvest and storage. In the future, these processes may be so universal that what we now call precision agriculture will be simply called agriculture. So going back to the farm sizes and the explosion of farm sizes because of mechanization, we start to see that farm sizes are huge. And when we talk about precision, so the smallholder, the small farmer who was able to do things by hand, they had a better feel of what was happening on their farms. They had better information, they could assess the health of their crop and make decisions better. So mechanization comes along, changes that, and makes it more difficult for farmers to understand what's going on in their fields because it's such a large scale. If we use the example of a farm in Argentina, the average size farm in Argentina is 500 plus hectares. So if we put that into context, that's approximately 900 football fields. So you can imagine, how does a farmer able to assess the health or understand what's going on their farm when they're so big? So back to that photo I showed and saying, okay, there's a lot of technology in that initial photo. And what do we see there? We see GPS technology, we see yield monitors, we see auto steering on the combines and tractors to keep equipment moving online and in grids. Also topics known as controlled traffic farming, so that the tractors move specifically on tracks that they don't overlap, so that they're not compacting the soil too much. So all this technology is meant to gain efficiencies. It's a big investment, and farmers have been investing in collecting data for a very long time, and their goal is to increase their efficiencies, and hopefully that increases the profitability of their farm. So reducing error, understanding of what's going on better on their fields. So this takes us to, okay, now where does drones come into play in this new, let's say, as new technologies in enhancing precision agriculture? And there's many, and I will get into that. The next one, of course, as I mentioned, because of scale of farms growing, that this concept of field scouting and the traditional way as farmer would walk the field and assess the health and sample, go from field to field and understand what's going on. And I think this is where drones have come in, or the drone technology with its limitations. I think our panelists brought that up in terms of range, in terms of maybe complexity, in terms of comparing cost between satellite imagery and using drones. So it's not without, let's say, it's different obstacles, but it has given that capability for farmers to be able to understand and assess the health of their crops. So drones come into play, and they can be used for a wide range of topics. And one that I will zero in on here is on weed infestation. So this is something that farmers have to deal with throughout their planting all the way up to harvest to know the health of their crop. And drones can play a big role in collecting information that gives farmers the ability to understand where that weed is on the field, how much is it, maybe what type of species it is, and then give them that information where they can take decisions to apply different kinds of chemicals or spraying, how much they should use, where they should not use it, and ultimately to gain some efficiencies that will ultimately increase the profitability of their farms. So this is taking that example I gave you of mapping weed infestation. So you have the drone or the copter drone that was described by our colleagues with lenses. It's flying over those fields, and that information it generates creates data and layers that can be mapped. And as that information is translated into maps, farmers then are able to categorize, okay, what are the types of weeds that are affecting my crop, and what can I do about it? So these are one example of things that that drone technology has brought into the farming space that is giving farmers new things to make better decisions. Now the question is, so how can drones play a role in transforming agriculture in developing countries? I'm sure a lot of our participants and panelists are asking this question. So in the developed farms or developed economies across the world, of course, they have access to capital and better training, better, let's say, finances and so on, that they can have this technology. They're working at larger scale. So what does it mean for developing countries? We've seen it in the health space. This one example that has been quite popular in the media of the public and private sector kind of coming together, and they're delivering blood supplies in rural parts of Africa and Rwanda and Ghana using drone technology. So it is there, it is available. There's a lot of, let's say, potential. Now, how do we make this accessible into developing countries where, especially in environments where we're working, where I'm specifically working, we have farms that are on average less than 1 hectare. They're more small holders, and they're still doing a lot by hand and manual labor. How do we get young people into this space? These are all very challenging questions that I hope that we can try to address with our participants, and things that we can work towards and take that technology that's out there being used by the advanced farms or big operations, and how do we translate that and make developing countries reap those gains and transform. So that's where I will leave off. I know we are running on time, and to give participants a chance to also ask some questions. So I will turn over the floor to Alejandro to introduce our final speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stavros, for giving us these very inspiring messages. Yeah, particularly for showing us how the technology has been transforming the agricultural sector with the years and with the different use, and what are the benefits of applying such technologies, with an example already in the field, and the benefits for farmers, for stakeholders. I will continue now with Farouk, our last panelist.
Okay, sorry for this technical issue. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, a great opportunity for us to show what we're doing in Southern African subcontinent in terms of advancing sustainable industrialization. We are using satellite drones and technologies. I would also like to refer to what Alex was saying in the very beginning. So all this is about proper data collection and the data management. So I hope that this example will show how we're basically using this data, how we're collecting this data, not only for the better forestry management, better environmental management, but also to turn it to financial management, economic management, business management, and also social management, how we're creating jobs thanks to these technologies around industrialization. So just to put you to the context, I would love to say a few words about the project, why we're talking about satellite technologies and drone technologies, how they're helping us. So basically we piloted within our project in Namibia, which is promoting sustainable bush processing value chains. And this project is funded by the government of Finland, also co-funded by the Ministry of Industry, Trade and SME Development of Namibia, and also co-funded by the local venture capital. So just why all this project? Those who have been at any time in Namibia will never say this is Namibia, because this is something, the picture what was typical for this country some 50 years ago, or for this region 50 years ago. You can see free lands with the good grass, with indigenous species, with cattle and wild animals browsing, and basically giving a very, very good room for crops and cattle farming to flourish and to contribute to this project and to this country's wealth. But what we see now, what is the typical landscape now, is what we call bush encroachment. So this a species which is basically traveling from West African subcontinent, from the northwest of the continent, and which is basically invading the soil and basically replacing the indigenous grass, the indigenous species. It has a huge impact to the tourism sector because the animals are not visible. Farming is suffering from both crop farming and also cattle, because cattle cannot browse within, and the grass is not growing anymore. Moreover, these species are drinking a lot of underground water, 20 liters per day each bush. So the pace with which this is expanding is 1.5 million hectares per year. So there were a lot of attempts to address this, but all was done at the laboratory, at the experimental level. So the innovation, what we brought within this project together with our Finnish partners, was turning it to the industrial scale. So the idea was to use this product to create jobs, especially where the jobs are not so much available in this middle income country. So basically in the rural areas, it was not so popular just to cut this bush in the time of the climate change. So we decided to turn the bush to three types of higher value added products as animal feed, charcoal for the pharmaceutical and chemical use and for domestic use, and also Arabic gum. So the objective was to sustainably address this environmental problem while creating jobs and export generating activities in the country. How we did it? We brought different technologies, and I'll show how we did it. So basically, we brought the two containerized technologies to produce animal feed. So the innovation was that the equipment was like, I don't know how you say, 10 times smaller than its 10 years older alternative. And the charcoal production, charcoal production is not very environmental. So the innovation here is it's zero emission production. Instead of emissions, this technology produces charcoal and some fertilizers and tar for the paint production. So these are the final products, what we're seeing at the end of the day. So just to show what it brings to the country, which is arid, which is suffering from the droughts. So this is the animal picture before feeding with animal feed based on this invasive bush. And this is the picture some 3 months later with 50 kgs gained. So I was taking this picture myself. So the cooperation was around to build up a pilot plant. We took the place in the north from the capital in Chuvarongo, and there was a good cooperation. It is a good cooperation. This is not where my satellite picture will end. I'm just moving to the satellite and drone technologies. So yeah, we basically build up the plant, and this is how it will look like, and this is the way it takes the shape these days, even during the COVID time. So we're having the industrial hub being erected. Now, what is beyond? Yeah, so this is the pilot plant, which for first time we turned to we try to turn the experimental activities to the industrial scale. So behind this work, there was a huge work done as the strategic action plan, which involves market intelligence and technological feasibility of this pilot plant. And this suggested us that it could be multiplied. First of all, it will be profitable from 15 to 20% profitability on each product. And we can replicate this experience easily by the factor of 30 to 50 in Namibia itself and the factor of 100 in entire Southern African continent. So we wanted to have a prediction model. I will repeating all these jargons which were used by my colleagues, but applying to this particular case. So to see what is the potential, how to guide the harvesters to improve their profitability, how to make sure that there is a tool, a simple tool based on the very big data processing is in the pocket of the harvesters, where to go, where it will be bigger concentration of the invasive right bush, not harming the indigenous bush. It took us to the satellite level, to the space beyond stratosphere and troposphere, and also to apply some drone technologies. So the aim was to allow industrial scale identification, sustainable, targeted, responsible harvesting and processing of invasive species. That's why we appeal to the satellite drone-based imagery recognition. So, and also we went to artificial intelligence and machine learning exercise, which I will be showing in the next few slides. So we started with this rather typical, what the specialist calls unclassified images or image unsupervised classification, where we only use the RGB, visually separable data, or like identifiable data based on RGB, red, green, blue, imagery and other visual elements. So you see it on the right side of your picture, the data we were initially using. What was new in our project, we adapted it, we put upon the visual identification, the textural analysis on top of this visual interpretation. What does that bring actually? The textual analysis helps to identify which items share the same structure. For instance, water, scrub, soil, grass, trees, acacia themselves, thereby creating different classes in the prediction model which we were aiming at. So we do not have only the visual, but also textual characteristics which are in common between the different classes. We're talking about acacia, built, dense, vegetable, grass, pond, etc. So we did not stop here. So basically it was one of the big gains of the project. We were innovating by doing this project, and the innovation did not stop there. We tried to narrow down the analysis by turning to the individual tree crown coding. So this basically, you can see from the picture that this analysis, this narrow analysis, which was basically backed by the on-the-ground, let's say, sampling, gave us the latitude and longitude plus the crown area of each specific bush crowns. In the next slide, I will show you how we did it. So this is the time we were using the R programming to script this X, Y, and crown area. You can see these parameters in the table. So what helped us to do so is basically on the ground analysis and also referring to some literature which was done in the region, trying us to separate each single bush into different, let's say, volumes. Because you know that for the animal feed, we're using only twigs, vegetation and small branches, whilst the rest, which is above the soil, is being used for the charcoal, for the white charcoal, and for the chemical pharmaceuticals used charcoal. So this this analysis helped us to describe better the volume of biomass which could be used from each single tree for respectively animal feed and charcoal production. So then at the end, all this helped us to commercialize or to see the commercial value of each of the segments of the soil around our hub, and also to teach our prediction model to apply the same analysis to the wider area in Namibia and also in the region. We are already having interest from the neighboring countries to replicate this experience. So you can see from this map that it gives you not only the area, but also the number of the trees and the volume of acacia trees there. And my final slide, this all complex thing we're just trying to put on the dashboard, but the dashboard to be used not only by the Minister of Agriculture and Forests and not only by the Minister of Industry, Trade and SME Development, most importantly by the harvesters. So what you can see on the screen is the web-based dashboard. When you zoom it in, it will be augmented reality-based manual for the harvesters, skilled, semi-skilled harvesters, which could be turned to the mobile device. So this program could help to zoom in a respective area and to be guided where there is a biggest bush biomass needed. Why we're all doing this is just to, again, remind you, it's about the better farming and productivity, sustainable use of the land, renewable further use, most importantly for you need a job creation and enhanced expertise on the ground. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Farouk, for showing us a real practical example on how to apply these technologies and the impact that it can have for sustainable economic development in a developing country. Yeah, I will start quickly with the questions. For Alex, yeah, the regulatory frameworks can vary significantly across countries. What has been your experience by promoting the use of drones and satellite images across different regions of the world?
Well, traveling to different countries with drones has become a challenge. So once first, due to safety reasons, bringing them with a plane. So you have to carry, let's say, explosive batteries inside of a plane. That's a problem. Then you need to get flying permissions inside of the countries. So we stepped a little bit back from doing it ourselves. So, and our recommendation would be to work with local drone operators. So because they have all the permissions in place and have the experience dealing with the local authorities in regard to that. And a second advice would be also always considering satellite imagery as an option to complement or substitute drone imagery, if possible, because that's certainly the more cost-efficient solution.
Okay, Maximilian, how can drones help to optimize production and streamline supply chains and logistics? In which processes or areas they can provide greater efficiency gains?
Well, I think we stressed it in our presentations, and we were all quite pointing it in the same direction. It's all about data. It's all about accurate data. It's about eliminating fault-prone processes where data will be collected where you're in doubt if you can use it, and let it be the drone or let it be a satellite picture. This is where we have new technologies in place where we can, with respectively high cost, but a good ratio of economy and economic purposes, a high frequency of gaining data, a high frequency of having accurate data, eliminating error and making better decisions, let it be for economic reasons or for sustainability reasons. Technology is there, and it's up to us whether we're going to use it or not.
Okay. Stavros, I have a very hard one for you. How can the use of drones or satellite imagery help take agriculture to new sustainability heights and move forward towards a bioeconomy yeah, including climate-friendly agricultural practices such as sustainable use of water and agricultural products.
Okay, it's a very, very challenging question, Alejandro. Yes, I think one of the key words, and I think the direction of precision agriculture is efficiencies, and drones give another level, a more precise level for farmers to be able to choose what is most appropriate for their farm. So when it comes to fertilizers, when it comes to pesticides, pest control, weed control, when it comes to water usage, one of the colleagues uses this example of Ndvi as a way to sensors to give a picture of the chlorophyll of the plant, so the health of the plants. So all this, I believe, gives farmers a way to use those resources, those inputs in a more sustainable way, a more, let's say, efficient and cost-effective way. And I think those things in the long term will improve that, let's say, impact that farming has on the environment, because the challenge that we have to balance is that population is growing, and there's a lot more people to feed, and land use and land control is a very challenging topic. So I think that's where this type of technology will give farmers the ability to contribute more positively to a more sustainable farming approach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Farouk, what are the most important lessons learned from the integration of these technologies to achieve sustainable bush processing in Namibia?
Well, if you mean the satellite and drone technologies, basically, the project was for us a very big learning exercise. Also putting different technologies together, for instance, turning the pest into the value-added product. So no one thought about bringing two different technologies to put an industrial hub. Talking about these particular technologies, I think we also, as I was mentioning during my presentation, that the implementation was a learning exercise for us. So basically, I was dreaming first to use this technology before the starting of this project, and then we appealed to these technologies. We understood that it's basically doable. It is there. We shall not be afraid of basically using this technology, applying these technologies, even customizing these technologies, innovating within these technologies, combining with other technologies, and basically using it for the sake of creating jobs and value added in these countries, in the countries which are very under-diversified. So maybe just to directly answer to your question, maybe the lesson learned is not to be afraid to experiment, to use these technologies. I mean, we shall not be afraid of from the words Industry 4.0. It's everything is applicable. To simplify, to use, not to be afraid to combine the technologies, but of course with certain, I would say, high degree of safety and security, of course, by doing this.
Okay, thanks. This brings me to the next question. Alex, what are the most commonly faced challenges that farmers and forest managers in developing countries may face for acquiring satellite, drone, and field data? Yeah, and how they can be overcome?
Basically, I don't see that there's a lack of technology. So technology is really in reach. I think all over the place around the world. So if you have internet, you can have access to this technology. So what is really missing, I would say, is the education and the domain knowledge. So to have people on the ground who can really ask the crucial questions. So first of all, you have to understand what Ndvi means, what plant health means, how the ecosystem work. And then you can, as I mentioned, formulate the right question. What kind of information do I need to make better management decisions? So independent from the technology stack. So, and if you have this information, then you can reach out and, let's say, learn those technologies. So there's open source JS software we are using, like QGIS. There are open source drones, which we are using, which have super performance, which have competitive costs. There are free data collection apps available, and there's free satellite imagery available. So everything is basically in reach. So I think specifically in the developing context, we have to support the local farmers, the people on the ground, to gain that knowledge, that domain knowledge, so that they, let's say, can access or tap into this source of technology.
Excellent, thanks for this nice answer. Maximilian, you stress about the importance of data. A significant amount of data is collected while implementing drone technologies in agriculture. To who belong this data, and how to prevent problems associated with privacy protection?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Two answers to that. Once, it's good to have a very good idea, good concept in terms of data usage prior to the project is starting, which is basically technologies in place to prevent collecting personal data, which means our drones are equipped with face recognition, not in order to identify the very person, but to blur this information and to have people detected in order to get them out of the data, not to generate personal data that may later lead to some kind of conflicts. That's the one hand. So this is a technical challenge to make sure that collecting so much data, you focus on the one kind of data you really want to collect. And the other thing is, for each and everyone who thinks about having a drone project set up, to have this question clearly pointed out in the contracting and awarding phase, to make sure that the data possession is very clearly structured in the contract or the purchase order assigned from the very beginning, so you don't have to struggle over these issues afterwards, because this is a pain that you don't need to. And each and every professional drone provider will have good answers to that, and there are technical solutions that prevent misuse, and that should be a focus for each and everyone who feels he wants or she wants to work with drones.
Okay, very well. Stavros, I come again with another one, very interesting one, particularly considering that we have today, for the first time in these webinars, we have no women present. Yeah? And this is something that we need to still working more. Women constitute the majority of the agricultural labor force in small-scale farming. How can we better equip women and young female agripreneurs to reap the benefits of drones and precision agriculture? And how can this help then to build future resilience? Yeah. So Stavros, again with you.
Very, very tough question, Alejandro. And going back to what Alex said about education, and I know it's very simple to say education is the solution, but what you see, at least in the countries that I've been working in, is young people don't want to be farmers, you know, whether they're boys or girls, and those who may have been raised in the rural areas, they are looking for ways to run away and move into the urban areas, and you start to see this decline, and then they go to the urban areas, I think, with a lot of high expectations that don't get met, right? And so that education, I think, has to start very early, and even at the elementary or primary level, with STEM education, with science and technology, and you know, having young people, you know, work and engage in new things with their hands, so they become excited about science, they get excited about technology, and then subsequently moving gradually into the education space, because there is a lot of technology today behind agriculture. And what those young people might see, they see their parents who have been working with their hands in a very labor intensive way. They don't see that as their option or their destiny. And it doesn't need to be that way, and farming doesn't need to be that way. So this combination of mechanization and technology is one of the ways to bring people back to farming, get young people, both men and women, excited, boys and girls excited about becoming agripreneurs or agribusiness specialists. There's many fields. I had the opportunity to meet a young Ghanaian when I was in Ghana, who had a pineapple farm, a very small pineapple farm, and he had a, you know, I wouldn't say a DIY or DIY drone, but he had a commercial, small, let's say, you know, off the shelf that you could find at kind of any media markt or this kind of shops. And he had an Ndvi sensor on it, and he was using it to assess. And he said it saved him a lot of money because he found out some health problems that his plants found out. So these people exist. Now, how do you empower them? How do you use them as examples to other young people? So all these things have to, there's not one education solution, but there is many. And that needs to, I think the current generation of women who might be on the farm, those aren't the ones who are probably going to adopt that technology now. But we need to start with their children. We need to start with kids who are in the education system today or who have gone off to study, who think that being in an urban environment is where they want to be, and try to stimulate that creativity. And they will go back to the land and hopefully contribute positively to their society. So I think it needs a multi-dimension approach to take it to a level that it's exciting and it's not physical backbreaking work. And that technology is out there. And we need to try to, as I think Alex said, that it's accessible. There's a lot of open source. There's a lot of DIY material. So it's there. It's just how do you empower and how do you build that knowledge ability to take it and do something with it. And I think that's the best way. And I think that's, you know, where, you know, organizations like UNIDO play this role to try to bring people together from private sector, like we're doing. We're learning from our colleagues and bringing all these pieces together to come up with this answer. And it's not so easy, but I hope that clarifies. Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you very much, Stavros, for also this very inspiring answer, yeah? and for comprising all these elements, which are very important if we want to bring women and youth for these value chains again. Farouk, we have one question for you, which is very similar to those that we have been receiving from the chat some minutes ago. In which other areas could drones and satellite field data be used to advance industrial sustainable, inclusive and sustainable industrial development in Southwest Africa or in other developing countries?
Thank you so much for addressing this question. It's a really big question. Basically, as we speak, the areas of use of the drones is being increased. I mean, yeah, apart from like using it as a prediction model, as I showed in our experience, we can see that how the drones are being used like in the smart warehouse management, like indoor management, even drones are now flying with inside of the pipelines to monitor. The drones could be used for the better surveillance of the mining activities like dimension stones, ores. You know, in transportation even is being used now for some extended areas. You know, there are some drones which are already spraying fertilizers. I mean, returning back to the agricultural activities. So, you know, it just to have maybe, as I said, to generalize in which areas the drones could be used whenever humankind could find a way how to use the remote sensoring where to use the larger picture, let's say, where to use the prediction models, and where to save time, resources, and to ensure the fast return of investment wherever it will be possible. I think the humankind will go, and businesses, agriculture will go and use these technologies. And the beauty of these technologies is that the new areas are being popping up as we speak.
Thank you very much, Farouk. And I want to thank all of the panelists at this stage, and to all of those that has been attending to this session. I would like to remind that we have recorded this session and that we will make the presentation available afterwards for your further reference. All the questions that our participants has been posing in the questions and answers section will be replied later, and will be, I mean, these answers will be available for you as well. I would like to take the opportunity to invite also all of you for the next webinar session next week. That will be, we will be talking about fisheries, I mean, on the application of big data and other technologies in fisheries. I think will be also relevant. And with this, I think we are ready to close the session. I would like to thank again all the panelists for sharing all this knowledge and the fascinating world of satellite and drones imagery with us, and the application particularly for developing countries, for helping them in the path to the SDGs and the 2030 agenda. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.